Hi, Dan. How are you today?
Hey, Jordana. It's always pleasant to see everybody, and today is President's Day, and you see it's a beautiful day, and we're able to celebrate this wonderful holiday, so to speak. Some people are off work, some people are selling merchandise, but we're able to enjoy another Jane Austen film on Hallmark.
Correct. We're still in the month of Loveuary or February, and we got to enjoy this weekend an American in Austen.
Oh,
And
that
what
was
were your
super.
thoughts?
That was a super presentation, and Hallmark hit it out of the ballpark.
I agree. This was actually one of this one focused on one of my favorite books of
Yes.
Jane Austen's called Pride and Prejudice.
Remember, Pride and Prejudice was written almost 200 years ago, and much of what Jane spoke about in her novel is very apropos to today.
Yeah, I mean it was fantastic. This took us back. So it started off, which I loved. It was about you never see librarians as a focus of a movie, which I like. So Harriet, our main character, who was played by Eliza Bennett, who was adorable. She was a librarian and a writer.
Yes.
Who was in a block, was having a writer's block, and I thought it was so cute because it was focusing on her love for Mr. Darcy and never thinking that someone in real life could be this Mr. Darcy who's a character in Pride and Prejudice.
Well, what I found interesting is that Jane Austen's books and novels are really have been noted as chick novels, read mainly by young women, and very few men have really gotten into Jane Austen's novels. And what happened was that this became a dream scene, and this wonderful young librarian fell asleep in a cab and woke up in England circa 1800.
Yeah.
And everything became confused by this Jane Austen novel because nothing was the way Jane Austen wrote the novel.
It was hilarious. I think how they,
Yes.
she as a writer, right? She kept saying she knew the future for the Bennett sisters in the book.
Yes.
And she's like, it's not going the right way. It's not going the right way. All because before she fell asleep in the cab, you forgot to mention that she actually got proposed to by her fiance.
That's right.
Her boyfriend, and not saying yes, not saying no. She said, what did she say, Dad? Which was hilarious.
It was, let me give this some thought.
She said, maybe.
Maybe.
Who says maybe to a proposal? But it was hilarious. So then she kind of had to go into this novel to realize, does she have her own real life Mr. Darcy right in front of her? Or is she going to see that Mr. Darcy's not really what he's cut up to be? So she goes into Jane Austen's novel and meets real life Mr. Darcy.
Now, for the ladies who watched this Hallmark presentation and who read Pride and Prejudice, they saw the questions that came along with the production and the fact that it didn't seem to be going the way the novel was going.
Yeah.
For the men who watched this Hallmark presentation and who have never read Jane Austen, it could have been very confusing.
And that's what you found. So we paused it a little bit, and I had to explain who's
That's
supposed
right.
to be with who.
Yes.
Wait a second. Why is Lizzie not ending up with Mr. Darcy? He has an interest in Harriet instead, and she's gonna end up with somebody else. So it was a little bit confusing, I think, in that matter, if you weren't familiar with the story.
Well, that's
correct?
like waking up today and finding that Larry David fell in love with Susie. And you knew that couldn't occur. And that's what was being presented by Hallmark.
Although their life would be interesting if Larry David was with Susie.
Absolutely.
But I thought it was funny there was something where Hallmark couldn't even get away from the Taylor Swift era, because there was a point where she even, looked off to the stars and said, hey, it's me, I'm the problem in this Jane Austen movie, I'm causing all the problems.
Yes, Hallmark brought in modern day Taylor Swift.
Yeah, it was
who we usually see at football games.
Yeah. And then also, I loved that the executive producer of this movie was none else than a Hallmark true fan, but
Yes.
the Duchess of York, Sarah Ferguson.
Sarah Ferguson has been re-welcomed back into the royal family, and she is King Charles's favorite sister-in-law these days, and it was fun seeing Sarah and seeing that she actively was in a Hallmark presentation.
And I think, and it didn't say it, or it may have said it at the end, I didn't catch it, but I think it was her voiceover at the beginning. It sounded like her, someone with a British accent in the beginning where it kind of talks the story. And then
Yes.
you saw her, and I thought she looked fantastic. She was wearing an emerald color with her red hair. I thought she looked great.
She did look great, although she's aged from when we last saw her with her children, 20, 30.
Haven't we all?
Not me, I've remained youthful. But it was a wonderful presentation, and for people who knew Jane Austen and knew this wonderful Pride and Prejudice that she wrote, they enjoyed this because they could see what was occurring, and they know the story, and they saw how the story was brought back into the way that Jane presented it at the end, and it ended beautifully. And then she woke up back in her cab. At the end, the dream scene was over, and she was met by the young man who had proposed to her.
Yeah, it ended beautifully. It's as all Hallmarks do, happily ever after.
It was a fun show.
I liked it.
The characters that Hallmark had were wonderful actors and actresses, and we all enjoyed this presentation. I must tell you that it made me go back and review Pride and Prejudice. And it brought me back to Jane Austen, who I hadn't studied since I was in high school. And that was such a wonderful experience, and we all learned from Hallmark.
Well, and I think we discussed this last week, how Hallmark is bringing a resurgence to these authors that I think are wonderfully women rights kind of authors that are empowerment to women, and I love that they're bringing a light back into them, that people want to go grab these books again.
Well, they want to go back and renew their experience with past authors of note, and we shouldn't forget that these wonderful authors did such a beautiful job of preserving history and bringing it for us to enjoy.
Now, if anybody wasn't sure about Pride and Prejudice, but you're a fan of Bridgerton, it's very similar to Bridgerton. So if you love Bridgerton and you aren't familiar with Pride and Prejudice, I still think you may love this Hallmark movie because same concept, daughters getting married, fun. It's the same time era.
History continues, and we all are brought back to reviewing history, and history is so important for us all. And Hallmark is doing a great job of renewing our interest in the past.
Yeah, this is just the PG version, I should say, of Bridgerton. Because Bridgerton's can get a little racy.
And what's on for next week?
So next week, I love that they're ending Love You Weary with Jane Austen's first novel that was published in 1911. It's Sense and Sensibility. And that was her first novel. So I love that they're starting back at her humble beginning.
1811.
1811. Oh, yes. Thank you for the correction, right? It'd be pretty amazing if she was writing in the early 1900s. So yeah, 1811, her first novel. They're starting at the beginning of Jane Austen with Sense and Sensibility. So
it should be a wonderful presentation.
Some people's favorite.
It's hard to believe February is almost gone, and March Madness is upon us, and we look forward to Hallmark leading us into March.
And there is for anybody, hold on, there is for anybody who is around tonight, there is A Taste of Love, which is an added feature, which is a new movie tonight as well.
Well, look forward to that, and look forward to seeing everybody next week. Until then, enjoy the end of February, and we're looking forward to spring coming forward. Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.